much. Thanks.
You are welcome.
Awesome to be here, and amazing to see so many people in the crowd. So, what are we going to discuss? We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about stones like this, digital stones. And of course, we're also going to talk about the hype train. Who has any Bitcoin here in the audience right now? We see a few people. Did you get on the hype train, or did you miss the hype train? Who got on the hype train? Some people did. Well, we're going to discuss really how it all started. We're going to discuss how different companies are using blockchain. And of course, we're also going to discuss the hype element of the whole topic, because it is huge, no doubt about that. So we're going to discuss why, when, and how can we use blockchain, and when you should use blockchain and when you shouldn't use blockchain, because that is, I think, #1 question people need to ask themselves. I mean, do we even need this? And so I myself started as a software developer. I come from a very, very tech background. I worked at Ericsson for several years, and then I started doing YouTube videos about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, how it works. And then we realized, you know what, this is growing. Many people are interested, and now we also have a company called Stockholm Blockchain, where we educate governments, companies, and organizations about blockchain. We support several projects currently in the space that are developing blockchain solutions, and we also help them with development, with advisory, the whole package. And I do shows every day on YouTube, talking about different things blockchain related. This space is crazy, and there is always something to discuss, something going on. And so, first of all, we need to start from the beginning. It all started in 2008, when a random person or a group of people released a white paper, basically a PDF describing how we could build a monetary system without any central bank, any central server, any central organization controlling that monetary system. And of course, one has to ask oneself, how can it work? I mean, if we have a currency that is digital, such as Bitcoin, how can I trust you and how can you trust me? Because what is really stopping me from saying, you know what, I have a trillion Bitcoin? So in some way, we need to develop digital truth. We all need to have a record of transactions that everyone can verify, and you can basically know for sure that I'm not lying about how many Bitcoin I have. And this is very important to understand. This is where we start talking about things like blockchain. Now, this is not going to be a technical talk. If you're interested in how it actually works under the hood, we can talk about that after this speech. This speech is more practical. But blockchain is basically this digital stone. Because when you write on such a stone, I mean, if I write picture right here, it's very hard for me to change it. It's impossible. And the same is with blockchain. So it is basically a database where you can insert things, but you cannot change them, you cannot delete them. And this is how we build digital truth. That with blockchain, with this digital stone, we record all transactions that ever happened. It's impossible for anyone to change them. It's impossible for anyone to remove transactions. And that way we can trust each other. Because I can verify how much money you have, you can verify how much money I have, and therefore there is no way to cheat this. And so when we're talking about Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, it's always important to talk about the openness of the whole system. Because with Bitcoin, for example, anyone can just look up an address, a Bitcoin address, and see how much Bitcoin that address has. So it's a lot about open data, and basically open sourcing the financial technology stack, which is very important and opens up a lot of business opportunities. Basically, what internet has done is open source the information of the world. Anyone can now access whatever you want and research whatever you want. With blockchain, you can draw a parallel and say that it open sources the financial stack and financial information that up until now has been very restrictive and up until now hasn't been very open at all. And it's all about this digital stone, that we can record transactions. This digital stone, namely the blockchain, is open for everyone to view and is open for everyone to use. So this is very important. Blockchain is permissionless. You do not have to ask permission to use Bitcoin. And this is very important from just a global perspective. And the person before me was talking about why. I mean, you need to have a mission. So my mission with blockchain, with cryptocurrencies, has a lot to do about the global problems, things such as Bitcoin solves. Because you realize in many countries, you don't even have bank accounts. If you live in some countries in the world, you cannot just start a startup and raise capital from all over the world. I mean, it doesn't matter how brilliant you are, how good team you have, how great ideas you have, business plan, all of that good things. You simply cannot receive or send digital transactions because you need to be a bank customer, and in some countries there's just not enough infrastructure. In some countries, banks simply will not accept you as a customer because they cannot make money with you, and therefore having an open, permissionless monetary system is extremely important for the world. Something else that is important with blockchain and cryptocurrencies and digital assets as a whole, which we will discuss later on a bit more, is that they are unconfiscatable. This is extremely important in countries where corruption is a problem. Because how do you really preserve your wealth in a country where the government is corrupt? I mean, sure, you can try to buy real estate, they can take it. Sure, you can try to buy precious metals, they can also take it. So, you know, my personal conviction is that unconfiscatable digital assets should be a human right. Every human should be able to own an unconfiscatable asset. And so, cryptocurrencies, blockchain is really the technology that allows this to happen. And open source banking, that is something we already mentioned. So, now I've covered the financial part of it, that with Bitcoin we have a cryptocurrency, you don't have to have a bank, you don't need to be a bank customer, it's open for everyone to use, it's global, 24/7, and it's very open when it comes to data. Now, who knows this man? Raise your hand. Some crypto people know this man. Well, first of all, we need to realize that Bitcoin is programmable. You and we can do simple programs on Bitcoin. So one simple program we can do on Bitcoin is that, let's imagine that we have a company. You and we have a startup together. And you do not want me to send the money, the company's money, without your consent, and I do not want you to send the company's money without my consent. And so on Bitcoin, we can program a wallet that requires us both to sign a transaction. So you cannot spend money without me, I cannot spend money without you. This is a simple logic we can add to the Bitcoin infrastructure. But so this programming language we use in Bitcoin is very restricted, it's very limited. And so this guy, Vitalik Buterin, he thought, you know what, why don't we add a fully fledged Turing-complete programming language to Bitcoin? So that you and we can build real-world apps outside the financial space on the blockchain. So for example, he thought, you know what, why don't we build a social media network on the blockchain so that we can do social media in the same way we can do Bitcoin. Without any central entity, everything is peer-to-peer, no one is collecting your data, you own your data yourself, and so he pitched this idea to the Bitcoin community. And he said, guys, let's add a fully fledged programming language so that we can program more real applications. I mean, Bitcoin is very important, financial aspect is hugely important, but there's so much more we can do. Bitcoin community didn't like that. So they said, we only want to focus on the monetary aspect. And so Vitalik just went and created Ethereum, which is the second biggest cryptocurrency today. And on Ethereum, what you have is that you have so-called smart contracts. Now, personally, I hate the name smart contract because it doesn't describe what it means at all. When we say smart contracts, what we mean is basically software that owns money. What you can do now is that you can write small applications that live on the blockchain. No one can turn them off. You cannot change them, but they can hold money. They can decide what to do with money according to the way you have programmed them. But once you've launched such a smart contract, such a software on the blockchain, you cannot change it. And so what we are discussing when we're discussing software owning money is basically the fact that your car in the future might need to own money. Currently, your car cannot open a bank account. Your fridge cannot open a bank account. Only people can open bank accounts. But with crypto and with things such as Ethereum, I mean, currently, anything can own money. Anything can open its own bank account with software that owns money. So whenever you hear smart contract, think of software owning money and deciding what to do with money. And you cannot just go and try to take away that money from the software if it's not programmed in a way that you can actually do that. So Bitcoin fixes the monetary aspect, and Ethereum fixes the rest. At least that is the idea. There are many problems with the Ethereum project. We can discuss those after the talk, but that is the whole idea. And the vision is that we can do peer-to-peer internet. The vision is that we do not need to use the internet as it is today, where you have 2-3 companies owning the entire thing. I mean, let's be honest, if you don't use Facebook, Google, you are basically not using the internet. How can you survive in the society that we have today without those companies? It's impossible. So the vision that with smart contracts, with this decentralized technology, that we can write websites that do not run on a server, they run on a blockchain, which no one owns. We do things peer-to-peer. We can solve these big issues that the humanity faces today. And of course, we need to talk about the monetary aspect. I mean, you are all startup people here. You want to raise money. How many of you have heard about ICOs? How many think ICOs are scams? Some people think they're all scams. Well, you realize that they raise a lot of money. I mean, this is from 2017, and now we're even, double that, and we've grown a lot since those days. And basically, an ICO is that you create your own cryptocurrency, and now you can raise money from all over the world. And as some people raise their hands, unfortunately, we have seen a lot of scams in this, because, as I mentioned, it is about opening up possibilities. Suddenly, everyone can invest in whatever startup they want by buying digital tokens. But at the same time, you lack protection, you lack investor protection, and you lack regulation. So we're still in the wild, wild west of crypto, and still wild, wild west of blockchain, where you see a lot of people selling snake oil, basically, trying to convince you to buy their token, to invest in their technology. But the thing is, this is exactly how it was with the internet, when that was new. I mean, back then, if someone said, we're doing voice over IP app, everyone would just throw their money, take my money. It doesn't even work. Voice over IP in the year 2000 doesn't even work. The same is here in blockchain. You see so many promises, so many visions, but currently the infrastructure is limited, and therefore you need to be extremely careful when dealing with ICOs. But one thing is for sure, they are here to stay, and they are democratizing fundraising. I mean, nowadays, wherever you live in the world, you can start raising money from anyone in the world, and also you can start investing in anyone in the world as well. So it's really about giving people more power, but at the same time, you have to have a lot more responsibility. And of course, people are asking, okay, so when will this work? When can we actually have decentralized applications? When can we have decentralized internet? And so if you want to try, just Google Steemit. So Steemit is a social network that is running peer-to-peer on the blockchain. There is no central server, no central company owning the whole IT infrastructure, and it is completely blockchain-based. So answering the question, what is happening today, we already now see projects. We already now see companies building their applications, such as Steemit. Another one is, of course, cats. Who has cats? Digital cats. Anyone has any cats? Anyone heard about cats? Some people heard about cats. Well, basically, this is about digital assets, that you have digital collectibles. What you have here is CryptoKitties. They launched last year on Ethereum, and you basically collect them. You can think of this as art on the blockchain. And the most expensive CryptoKitty actually sold for $150,000. So some people are really serious about these cats. And then you can breed them together, like if I have a cat and you have a cat, we can breed them, and maybe we will get a special child cat, things like that. And it's all on the blockchain. Basically, no one can take your cat away from you. There's no server that is running the cats. It's all decentralized, it's all peer-to-peer. And it is funny, but at the same time, it's kind of a silly example, but at the same time, people are taking this further now. I mean, nowadays, you see people trying to tokenize real estate. So just like I own silly cats, maybe in the future, I can trade square millimeters of a real estate property on the blockchain globally. Maybe in the future, I can trade grams of gold globally on the blockchain. So yes, although it is a silly example, I mean, realize it's only the early days. We still haven't figured out the use cases of this all. But digital assets, such as cats, such as digitalizing art, things like that, will be in the future for sure. Some other examples is, for example, insurance, when it comes to using the blockchain. And insurance is an interesting example, and we are currently working with several companies that want to do insurance on the blockchain because it solves a lot of the friction in the insurance industry. So let's imagine that you and I, we crash our car and we need insurance. We need to apply, we need to report what happened. Maybe we will get our money soon, maybe not. There might be issues getting the money from the insurance company. And the whole idea with blockchain is that, you know what, in the future when our car crashes, the sensors in the car can report directly to a smart contract, basically software owning money, and this smart contract will pay us instantly. So the insurance companies of the future will be offering their customers quicker payouts and more safe payouts by using smart contracts, because you as a customer know that they have locked their money into the smart contract and it will be paid. Another aspect is law. I mean, when we're moving these businesses to the blockchain, that we have smart contracts and the really software owning money, once again, you realize lawyers need to adopt themselves, because can you sue software because it holds your money and doesn't want to give it to you? So it's a whole new paradigm that we're exploring. Another aspect is crypto equity. Nowadays you see NASDAQ, nowadays you see New York Stock Exchange exploring how we can trade securities on the blockchain, so that stocks in the future are basically digital assets. I mean, just like your cats, imagine you, instead of cats, you own stocks in a company. And then, using smart contracts, you can have board meetings, you can have a voting right, you can vote for a proposal by using your tokens, and have truly global companies that run 24/7. They have shareholders across the world that can really use their voting right on the blockchain without any central entity controlling it. I mean, you don't have to rely on central fundraising entities like you have today. You don't have to rely on any other middleman. The whole idea is that we can do everything peer-to-peer in this decentralized manner. And so finally, I want to speak a bit about regulation, because of course it is a whole new paradigm, and many countries are thinking about how can we regulate this. I mean, what is a good approach? And I mean, the thing I want to communicate here is that some countries will do it in a bad way. I mean, you see, for example, China really fighting against their crypto community. They do not like cryptocurrencies. They do not like this whole industry that is building. But I mean, realize that they're really hurting themselves, because Chinese crypto startups aren't disappearing. They're just moving elsewhere. They're moving to, for example, Estonia, which is a very crypto-friendly country, and they really encourage crypto startups. They really encourage people who want to try and build things on the blockchain, issue tokens, try to build digital assets. Actually, we're also working with a Swedish crypto exchange. They want to trade cryptocurrencies, and they want to deliver this service so that people can trade cryptocurrencies on their platform. They actually had to move from Sweden to Estonia, because in Sweden currently you don't have a lot of rules, you don't have a lot of regulation, and so we are in so-called regulatory uncertainty. You don't really know what you're doing when you're doing crypto startups in Sweden, and you don't really know what will happen to your startup in a few years if Finansinspektionen and Skatteverket will come after you. So therefore, too much regulation is bad. You're killing your community. They're moving elsewhere. They're taking their brains and their capital with them. And too little regulation is also not very good, because people are not daring to do anything. I mean, even we're in contact with several banks that are interested in offering some crypto services, but they just don't dare doing it, because they don't want to lose their banking license. They do not want to take this risk, regulatory risk, and so therefore people are now moving to countries such as Estonia, also Switzerland, very big, also Singapore, extremely huge, and others. And finally, I think blockchain is extremely important when it comes to just governmental IT infrastructure. Because even in Sweden, we have a lot of problems with corruption, for example. I mean, the one example that everyone knows is bostadskön. The queue, you place yourself in the queue, you wait for an apartment. But it's happened several times, and will happen in the future, that officials will put their children, their relatives in front of the queue, and it would be impossible with blockchain solutions, because a smart contract, you cannot bribe a smart contract. You cannot bribe a software that owns money and doesn't know you personally. So I think just the UN, the international community, will come to the conclusion that blockchain is a standard that all governments need to use. And if you're not using blockchain, why not? Do you have something to hide? What is the issue? Why don't you want to be open? Why don't you want to use this decentralized infrastructure where you cannot cheat? I mean, technically, you cannot cheat. You cannot have corruption. And obviously, blockchain is not a silver bullet. It will not solve cancer and all of the other things that many people claim, but it can solve many things. And this is something that we absolutely should keep in mind. That's it, guys. We have time for questions, a few minutes. So who has questions? Raise your hand. Nice. I will throw the microphone. Let's see. Oh, crap. Actually, I threw my clicker.
Hi.
Sorry. Hi.
I was thinking about this partnership thing of kind of owning the cryptocurrency. So, you know, and saying that nobody can do any trades without the other one. What about if somebody dies?
Yeah, I mean, that is a big issue. If someone, you need to plan this, because your Bitcoins are unconfiscatable. Only you can use them. Only you have the key. So you need to plan this. You could give your key to, actually, you could solve it with smart contracts. So for example, let's say that I have a lot of cryptocurrencies, and my children cannot use them because I have the key. I can put all my money into a smart contract. And it is this program that now holds my money. And I can say to the smart contract that I can withdraw my money. So the smart contract will give me back my money if I want. But I can also tell the smart contract that, you know what, if I do not log in, if I do not ping you, if I do not touch you for 5 years, send this money to my children, and you specify an address. And you know, you're removing middlemen, because currently, if you want to do inheritance, you need to go to an escrow agent, you need to trust a corporation, an entity. But now, you can upload your money to the smart contract, and if you do not touch the smart contract for 10 years, it will automatically send money to your children. So this is something you need to plan in advance. But you know, we see so many, for example, divorce lawsuits nowadays, where you know the husband or the wife, they have a lot of Bitcoin, and it's impossible to take it from them. So it is pros and cons, but at the same time, many people are convinced, including myself, that it should be a human right to have assets that no one can take from you. And this is something that we're moving towards, and simply you need to plan it. If you really want to give your money away when you die, you need to plan it. And for example, use a smart contract that will transfer it.
Technical question, actually, because as you said, it's not running on servers, the blockchain. But how is it running, and is there any risk of technical crash?
So it is running peer-to-peer. So we all, it is a network of computers, and each computer runs a client, the client of this protocol, for example, Bitcoin. And we're all communicating peer-to-peer, and we all reach consensus peer-to-peer. So there is no one single server, no one single entity that controls it. We're doing it. It's a bit like torrents. You know, people downloading movies. It's impossible to shut down one server and it's gone. So you can compare it to that.
So has there been never been any technical issue with this, you know, this block that is impossible
you know,
to...
Bitcoin is 10 years old. The 10-year anniversary was last week. And of course, there are billions of dollars in Bitcoin. And of course, people are trying to hack it each and every day. So the Bitcoin blockchain itself has never been hacked, although people are trying to do it each and every day because there's so huge incentive to do it. I mean, if you're able to do it, you will be able to steal billions of dollars. But there are hacks in the exchanges. So you could hold Bitcoin yourself, or you can put it on an exchange, basically a company that says, give us your Bitcoin, and you can maybe trade Bitcoin to other cryptocurrencies, and they basically hold your Bitcoin for you. So there has been hacks in these companies basically handling other people's Bitcoin. But Bitcoin itself as a technology has never been hacked. And I mean, currently there are several thousand cryptocurrencies, and many of them are simply bad, many of them are scams, so I wouldn't include them as in this discussion at all. But I'm just looking at the biggest ones, and no, they are functioning very well. Okay, we'll take you next. Yeah.
I'm just wondering why you didn't mention Malta.
Malta, absolutely. There is a big conference actually right now on Malta. It is also a big blockchain hub. The government is actively encouraging people to do business on Malta. Absolutely. There is a person here.
Right. Throughout the history of the world,
Yeah.
rules have been set and rules have been broken. And when
Yeah.
the rules are broken, we get evolution. So could it not be a negative thing to write these rules in stone and not be able to change them?
Which rules? For example, a
The
smart contract.
blockchain. As
Well-
I understood it, you can't change the smart
Well, it
contract.
depends. I mean, if you're talking about money, so one thing with Bitcoin, for example, is that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin. And it is a very important cornerstone of the whole system. And if someone in the future will try to change that, or some cornerstone of the system, it will simply not be possible because everyone is in this for the reason that they know this will not be changed. And this is the issue you have, for example, in Venezuela. I mean, they do not count money in Venezuela, they weigh money because the government is just printing, printing, printing. So I do agree with with your idea, but at the same time, when we're talking about money and financial applications that blockchain is best used for right now, for many people it's very important that the rules are set in stone. And also speaking about the future, I mean, I think we are kind of in the 80s. If you compare how the internet was in the 80s, we are kind of there when it comes to blockchain. We still don't know exactly how it's going to be used and what use cases it will have. Currently, the biggest use case is money, sound money, uninflatable money, unconfiscatable money. And so for those reasons, I think having it set in stone is a good idea.
No more questions.
Oh, that's it. Thank you very much, everyone.